know consistency is key, but it's hard to stay consistent when you're in the mix and consistently a G. I'm still dishing out them keys, so I'm sorry if you're missing me on beats. Wanna know why I'm missing? Listen to me please. I walk around town with enough jewels to change a nigga's life, so I gotta keep a pack that will take a nigga's life. And all them races on my back, police chases from a racist in the night. Now I'm with my niggas racing in Dubai. All I ever done was trap, then I changed it to the Mac. But this beef will never change, that's just engraved into my life. I lost some niggas that I love, their names engraved into my eyes. But wait, caught some niggas slipping first and made them pay the price. When I was younger, never thought I'd be debating on a price. With my youngers, ready to go take a nigga's life. And when they take this nigga's life, no, I'm breaking them a slice. Turn your block more smoky than Jamaican niggas' nights. Are they racist, fam? Trying to be funny or trying to relate to man? 60-year-old businessman trying to fist bump me instead of come and shake my hand. Like I ain't the same as man, they judge a pack that will take a nigga's life. And all them races on my back, police chases from a racist in the night. Now I'm with my niggas racing in Dubai. All I ever done was trap, then I changed it to the Mac. But this beef will never change, that's just engraved into my life. I lost some niggas that I love, their names engraved into my eyes. But wait, caught some niggas slipping first and made them pay the price. When I was younger, never thought I'd be debating on a price. With my youngers, ready to go take a nigga's life. And when they take this nigga's life, no, I'm breaking them a slice. Turn your block more smoky than Jamaican niggas' nights. Are they racist, fam? Trying to be funny or trying to relate to man? 60-year-old businessman trying to fist bump me instead of come and shake my hand. Like I ain't the same as man, they judge me in the meetings before I even get to say my plan. Plus every time I hit the booth, my nigga needs a rental car, my nigga needs some money now, my nigga needs a brick or loose. My brother's on the road to jail and he needs a home as well. The man just lost their phone as well, that's another rack to broski's girl. You know the crew's fire, amount of sticks I lost could go and fucking start a huge fire. Trying to focus on business and move higher, still gotta drip and show them who's flyer. Stuck up on the road like a new tire, you liar. Meanwhile them clowns still trying to speak on my name, but between all them lames, them boys ain't never left nothing for us to sleep in the rain. But really rapping about them shootings, find it cheeky and strange. You can find me where the peace to be made. Me and my BM started speaking again. I know she shed a tear when I had to leave, it was pain, but at least you get to weep and arrange. Sometimes I don't see my daughter for a couple weeks and it's pain, but if I'm sitting there every day my dreams slip away, then I'll be broken. Mommy will be acting more funny than she's been when I'm paid. G-Ducks, it's been a while since I've been to your grave, cause Billy and your brother died and it's increasing my pain. I feel them streets in my veins, them streets feel it the same. Mom had me at 18 and she was feeling to blame, and mom, I'm feeling your pain, but my dad could have been there, or Fed and Fred would have been just the same. For all I need is a chain, now all I need is a plane. Turn myself to a business, now it's easy to say. Right now, I'm legally and illegally paid, so I could quit rap today, look like I'm streaming away. So many hoes that I pipe, I don't even know why I lie. I just know they don't love me, I need to hold me a wife, so I can settle down and focus in life. Or I'm gonna die alone in this life with just a whole load of eyes. Still the scariest time, it's going home in the night. I gotta keep my eyes so open and wide, just in case they get the low on my home. And I didn't know, and they tried, that's how we got the low on your bro. He had to go to the sky every day. This is really how it goes to survive, how it goes in this life. How I'm grown, and I still gotta go with my knife. Even when I fucking go to the bar, I only get peace when I'm closing my eyes. I used to only wear designer, now I'm heavy on design. Now when they're asking what my tracky is, I'm telling them it's mine. I didn't buy it in no shop, my G, I get it from my mind. I used to sell my stock in trap houses, now I'm selling it online. And you can ask about me in Dubai, I'm quite a naughty dude. It don't matter what year it is, cause every year I pull up to them clubs and I bring them back to 1942. And every girl in my section, they getting quite a naughty mood. I got some OGs bold that got thrown in a slammer, but that's how it can go when you've been holding a hammer. Free unks, last time he was on road, man, they didn't have no phones with a camera. Picture that, I can't stand that. Meanwhile the feds still trying to take me to prison for the way that I'm living. They're trying to blame me for killings, go to kid game with warnings, try staining my image. First it was my mum's house, now they invading my business, while I'm still getting chased by these dirty little girls that never had a job but think they're worth working in Chanel's. Then little dots hit me, said the fans working in his jail, and if I DM him he's due to bring some 30 in his cell, yo. I sinned so much, was worthy for hell, but I kept faith in God, kept working and prevailed. My nigga tried to hide the hate, but once I couldn't hide the cake, it wasn't working, I could tell. That shit was hurting me as well. I ain't got no game, it's my chain that does the flirting with the girls. And I don't dance, but I got cocaine that's twerking on the scales. Everybody got a story, I just laid it more real. My story was a sad one, but I changed it for real. My story started in a small house, exchanging 4 deals. Now the penthouse got 3 stories, like Jason Bourne films. From all the pain I ordealed, only way to ease this pain is by making more meals and taking more souls. I'm booking visits for Stroll like I'm booking visits for blacks. I'm booking visits for LD, I'm booking visits for Babs. I'm having meetings with designers, having meetings with stylists. Sending money to VD, I'm sending money to tricks. Since I got with Kid Game, everyone I know wants a couple of kicks. My jail niggas need one for their chick, and then some more for their kids. So many real niggas that come on the list, how could I say say no to my brothers when none of them switch. Meanwhile, I've been working on a couple of hits. No music, laid something down, we got another one mixed. And I got 10 jibs to find out where another one lives. And then we're coming equipped, but we ain't burgling, it's one in your wig. Gobi's mum turning to 38, his mum was a snitch. Damn, my little nigga was the son of a bitch. My credit was so good and that's because I come from the strip. So before I ever bought a house, I put one on the wrist. I know them streets need Fred's heat back. It's like a battle with myself, it really gets me mad. Cause if I focus on rap, I'll be a deadbeat dad. But if I focus on being a dad, I'll lose the bread we had. And if I don't play my role on the block, then they'll say I'm acting different. But if I go back too much, then I'll go back to prison. My life's full of bad bitches and bad decisions. Rap don't last forever, now I'm trying to handle business. Cause I don't focus on these businesses, then when this rap finishes, I'll be on them interviews, talking about some flowers that I'm owed. Like allow it bro, you're old. Real hustlers take all their fucking flowers as they grow. I'm the type to make some flowers from the snow, spending hours at the stove. Now they give me 60,000 for a show. I spend an hour then I go. I spend an hour with a hoe. I spend 1,000 like a joke. You niggas sounding like a bro. How can I be a good rapper, good dad, good businessman, a good boss, a nice boyfriend, a good trapper? I can do it all, even if I had some power.
What's going on, family? What's going on? We're going to go ahead and get started here in 3-4 minutes. If you guys are in the boot camp chat, just go drop in the chat that you guys are on the call. And like I said, be ready. Be ready. Today we're going to go in depth. Wyckoff. It's going to be a good lesson. I think for a lot of people that may struggle with the concept or may just not know too much about it, I think it's going to be a very good, not only basic lesson, but also if you do know the basic fundamentals, I think you'll be able to kind of piece things together a little bit smoother. So in terms of that, family, make sure that you guys blow this call up. Let's get at least 25, 30 people on here. I know we can do it easily. But I'm going to chat to you guys soon, fam. Peace.
Said that it takes hours on the train. I didn't know no one, so I would go shower with my blade. Now I'm a first class Emirates customer. You boys ain't never showered on a plane. I got a mountain full of cane. My life's gotten hard now, not to be sounding like I'm vain. When the price of a Lamborghini car sounding like a chain. Me and nobody in London, it's sounding like the same. I never jumped on no one's wave, and they found me in my lane. Now niggas mad at me, they're broke. Fam, that's sounding like the blame. Now you're sounding like a lame. No one never gave me nothing, fam. I found it on the train. Yeah, he thought that he was gutter, so they found him by the drain. Surrounded by the grain, you know they found it in his brain. And bullets in his chest, the streets know we pass. Every time we're putting to the test. Don't invest in no guns, go and put it in a vest. Snatch a body from his breath, now we're looking for the next. Since 2020 in West, we put it in the best. 3 bodies, now we're up to like 6 a.m.s. But we ain't looking for a rest. Catch him slipping when he's looking for his breakfast. I had $500,000 in chains when slipped up, but I was drunk.
Can't get this by niggas we shot at. But when did I get it, I buy that. Smoking on bro, might die if you try that. When your little bro creep, we hide at. Got me some bready, I moved to official. But it's wish I could shoot at who with you. My bitch in their bag and my money ain't little. I'm up a Chanel like I'm coming to get you. Niggas who mention me turning to history. Where the killers be, they cannot get to me. Knock on my hip, no, I'm bringing that bitch with me. If you love me, then show it, just stick with me. I keep a stick with me, niggas be sick of me. I told bro he gon' die if he snitch on me. Smoking on dead, I'll be yelling out spit for me. If you miss me, then shows you dip for me. I'ma start trying to shine the limelight. Smoke a blunt, give me high, got my mind right. Bro did a crime, then I'm blind by the eyesight. If you miss me again, we gon' try twice. Got me some birdie, I'm new to official. But it's wish I could shoot at who with you. My bitch in the bag and my money ain't little. I'm up a Chanel like I'm coming to get you. Bro need an app, I send out in a hurry. If you need it, I got you, don't worry. Cardia vision no longer be blurry. Don't pass it like Joker, the orders like Maury. Real shit next line, I'm not joking. My bro die, niggas die cause they smoking. For the brag and I'm going, they be loafing. 12 gon' watch, why the fuck is you posting? Vision no tunnel, won't crash, no dummy. But it's killer, be killer if it's money. How many rappers got turned to a ducky? Bitch, I might up if you look at me funny. Oppos get hit and they live, they lucky. Fuck a thou with a rubber, no ducking. Got left from rapping, now bitches they want me. How could you leave me? Told me you love me, now I just might come to the scene in a rave. But a baddie, I'm an MBK. She was so pretty, I gave her a taste. If she needs some titties, I pay. Now cause it's on me, it's sit on the waist. I'm the one, ain't no taking my place. If my body starving, they hang on my plate. If you willing, I know you relate. Can't get this by niggas we shot at. You smoking on bro, might die if you try that. Got me some bready, I moved to official. But it's wish I could shoot at who with you. My bitch in their bag and my money ain't little.
Me had the goat, me no want on a mutton. Yeah, my brother in a Tariq, I'm a lawyer. Yeah, my brother in a Tariq, I'm a lawyer. If you not stand up for something, you go fall for nothing. Me did feel sad yesterday. Russian call and tell me say,
You my blood, so I'm lying like a dog. Me, I go pick up for you every time you call. Some of them just change like the season. Most of them just want me for fall. Some will stay with a rifle at all. Me no want on a picture on the wall. You know the black them hotter than a sauna. And we lock chopsticks more than Benny Hanna. 8 times rise, 8 times fall. Carry 16 shots for my dog.
any boy violate you a war. Any boy violate you a war.
8 times rise, 8 times fall. Carry 16 shots for my dog.
Me and you are forward from far. Me and you turning a big superstar. Come from Jamaica, the street grimy. Not for them boy, you're so bad-minded. Them will kill you for nothing at all. Chew you by the youth, them a football. What's the use? You woulda give them your heart. Them woulda cut it out of your chest, put it on the wall. Laugh when your poor mother ball.
8 times rise, 8 times fall. Carry 16 shots for my dog.
Any boy violate you a war. Any boy violate you a war.
8 times rise, 8 times fall. Carry 16 shots for my dog.
Me and you are forward from far. Me and you turning a big superstar.
I'm sending shots out the car. Rude boy, keep it AR. Can't believe that we made it this far. I'll let it all go, I'm loyal to the core. I'll be running this shit until my feet sore. Lifestyle of a savage until I go. Till I stand at the pearly gates on my soul. Keeping it G and live by the code.
In my blood, so I'm lying like a dog. Me, I go pick up for you every time you call. Some of them just change like the season. Most of them just.
What is going on, family? Drop one in the chat if you guys could hear me okay. You guys should be able to hear me okay. Right? How are we feeling today? How are we feeling? Happy Sunday. The markets just opened. So, you know, after our lesson, we'll definitely get a breakdown, overview of the week. So, I definitely would suggest staying on. As well, like I said, if you feel like anyone in your squad or just in your network would take any type of value away from learning just the basics about Wyckoff, as well as just being able to position yourself in a more fundamental way without having to guess. I like to say this a lot. I don't really like to guess when I trade. Like, if something's not very clear, I'd rather sit on my hands and let price develop versus just forcing a particular position. But in terms of that, family, I'm grateful for those of you that are on. I know that people are going to be tuning into the recording later. I'm going to upload. I'm probably going to break it up into 2 videos. One will be like the boot camp, and then the other one will be kind of an overview of the week. So, you know, you'll definitely be able to go back and watch the recording, and I'll break it up into 2 pieces, ideally to make it a little bit easier. But in terms of that, family, just to go ahead and start off today, I just want everybody that's on the call, if you don't have TradingView pulled up and you don't have like your charts pulled up, I would suggest doing so, just because I don't know if you guys are like me, but I'm a little bit more of a visual person. So I like to kind of follow along. So if the person that I'm learning from is kind of drawing things or just doing certain things, I like to be able to follow the same way, just because our memory sometimes is not as good as we think. I don't know about you guys, but I don't remember what I ate for breakfast yesterday, okay? I'm just being honest, right? So it's just not something that I really care about. But at the same time, we typically forget, you know, on average, about 95% of the things that we don't write down. So being able to either take a picture and then kind of write it out after or draw it out after is going to be beneficial. But basically, how we are going to start today's call, like I said, it's going to be a little bit in depth. But what we're going to do, like I said, I'm going to just do my best to make things, I almost said try, but I'm not even gonna try, I'm just gonna do it, right? I'm gonna make it make sense in the most simplistic way for the majority of people. Of course, there's gonna be some people where maybe not everything is gonna make sense, but as long as you can take some things out of it, that's the whole point, right? It's just being able to take bits and pieces away, but then how you're gonna be able to implement and then see the result that you probably want is by the repetition of doing it over and over again, okay? So just by seeing in the chat, right, for those of you that are on here, what would you say your level of Wyckoff understanding as well as application is currently? Like, out of a scale of 1 to 10, like if I were to ask you right now, right, in terms of your confirmations that you use before you press buy or before you press sell, are you utilizing Wyckoff as one of the main confirmations, or is it something that really isn't? Like, drop on a scale out of 1 to 10 how important Wyckoff is for you in terms of you entering currently, right? Where you're at currently in terms of your trading ability, not where you're working towards being, because like I said, by the end of this call, you should ideally be able to process and make things make sense a little bit more. So I see someone dropped a 1, right? What about the rest of you? Like, how much are you implementing Wyckoff into your entries? Okay, 4, 7. Okay. So it seems like people are kind of implementing it. Some people are not really implementing it at all. So it's definitely good. But one thing to definitely make sure of is that you might think you might be doing it the right way, but if you're not constantly able to sit here and have the execution align with what you think is going to happen, you just have to look at the results that you're getting. And if the results are not aligning with what you think is going to happen, and you're not able to position yourself, you might always think that price is going to go up or down, and you might be a little too early or a little too late. But it's like, if you're a little too early and you're a little too late, that's the difference between successful traders and people who are kind of on the fence. It's the ability to be able to not get in too early, not get in too late, but get in at that sweet spot, right? Because there's always going to be a sweet spot where you'll get a couple opportunities to enter before it really makes that move, but it's just being able to know what you're looking for. So overall, right, when it comes down to Wyckoff, right, if most of you guys are just unfamiliar with Wyckoff as a whole, like I said, what we're going to really do is start at the very basics, right? So this right here is very as simplistic as it explains on the diagram, right? Accumulation, right? Accumulation essentially is going to be an area where something is oversold. Okay, so that's when you're going to see typically the ending of whatever selling momentum or whatever big sell that we just got, or whatever just downward movement we just got. You're going to see typically it start to kind of exhaust, right? It kind of starts to settle down. It's not going maybe as fast as it once was. It's not moving just as volatile as maybe it started. So in this area, like I said, we're going to be looking for buys, okay? In the distribution area, right, at that point, things are just overbought, right? So the reason why this is important is because this is like that basic pillar that makes you understand, okay, the market only moves in 2 ways, accumulation and distribution. So if you're getting in too early, what that explains to me is that you're getting in phase A and phase B. That's to me, that's what that tells me. There's no way that you get in too early if you get into phase C. I've never gotten in too early in phase C. I might have gotten wicked out because maybe price went a little bit lower than I anticipated, but I was never sitting there like, damn, like phase C, I can't believe I was wrong. Like, no, like you're always going to get at least a little bit of a pop, just depending on what time frame you're looking at, right? So the higher the time frame, obviously, the bigger the movement, but that doesn't mean that you can't use certain conflict. Like, for example, you can sit here, and what I'm going to teach you guys how to do is use 1 minute accumulation, 3 minute accumulation, 5 minute accumulation to be able to correlate within your 15-minute trap candle or institutional area, right? Whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to be able to teach you how to use just imbalances within accumulation to be able to show you guys just how that you can use imbalances as potential re-entries, right? Those are going to be typically the test areas, right? So with that being said, just taking a look at accumulation. So this is what I want you guys to kind of write down initially, right? It is important to know all of these, but what I'm going to really help you guys with is just kind of like, I'm going to dumb down, and this is going to be like the dummy version of Wyckoff. But the reason why I say it's a dummy version is because I'm going to teach you what really you're going to be able to apply kind of right away. These are going to be the first steps you apply. Everything else that you guys see after, it's going to be a lot easier once you're able to establish just this fundamental. It's like, think about this. It's like if you were sitting here and you were training to be an athlete, instead of just sitting there and competing against the top athletes in the world when you haven't even experienced or trained at that level, right? You're starting maybe with just average people, right? You start in like a community league, right? With just people around your age, your athleticism, whatever have you not, and you progressively just increase from there. So this is kind of like what I mean by a dumbed down version. I'm going to teach you guys how to implement it in a way that for the newest person, it's going to make sense for you. but it's also not overcomplicating it to the point where it's going to intimidate you. Because I know for a fact, just seeing all of this intimidated me the first time, right? Because I'm like, holy fuck, like this is a lot. Like I'm sitting there, I'm always like this. This is when I first got Wyckoff, this is literally how it was. So boom, I will go from my chart, I'd be like, I'm like, damn. I'm like, I don't know. This shit all looks the same, right? So I'm flipping back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, trying to figure it out, right? And it really wasn't making sense to me. So what I'm going to sit here and do right now is kind of draw, ideally, just, we're going to back test this. And like I said, I'm going to pick like random points on the chart. There's a couple points that I'm going to go to specifically, just from trades that were called out and whatever date they were on. If you guys just want to go back and watch the stream on the day that occurred, or just go reference the video that's on my channel, then you guys will be able to go back and watch and see just ideally how we were able to catch these particular positions. But okay, with that being said, right, let's now sit here and understand, okay, when we initially look at this, right, a lot of people, right, they're looking at this preliminary support, right? So this is the first kind of, to me, this is like, I don't really look at this or the accumulation starting there. To me, I always look for this selling climax. And the selling climax, I'm going to teach you guys a little cheat code today, right? Because when you guys see here, the selling climax typically just pops up a little bit, right? Then we get a secondary test in phase 1 after this automatic rally. So the automatic rally, what you guys have to understand and what you have to translate this now to the regular, just the chart, is the selling climax and automatic rally is going to be just that first, just real sign that, okay, there's now some buys into the market. So the volume of buys might be low, but there might be more buys being offered right now than sells, right? So if you just pay attention to just what occurs on the smaller time frames, it's going to paint the picture. And I'm going to kind of teach you guys that as we go along, right? But as you guys see here, right, after this automatic rally, right, what we typically get is this push above at the beginning of phase B. So that's where really, this is where, to me, accumulation, when you start to get hip to it, that's where you're going to be like, all right, boom. Now I'm going to start getting ready to look for buys. I'm not going to look for buys, but I'm getting ready to look for buys. There's sometimes where I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, this looks like it's going to accumulate. I'm waiting for the spring. Like, for example, just looking at the chart, I didn't trade Thursday, Friday, but just looking at it Friday, it looks like we did get a spring. Right, and I'm going to teach you guys just, obviously, the manipulation that occurs as well. You guys are going to see sometimes it's not going to be textbook, especially on gold. Don't expect this shit to look the same on gold. So this is why I'm really giving you guys the perspective of things that are a little bit more volatile, that over time just take a little bit more time to develop, right? So just with that being said, when we enter phase B of accumulation, this is where now you're going to be able to start looking for positions. So you're not necessarily going to be positioning yourself in phase B, but this is where you start to mark up your areas and you start to just ideally look for certain things to occur. So in terms of this, when we get this secondary test, okay, what occurs first typically in phase A and the beginning of phase B, when we get this selling climax, typically what we're going to do is we're going to get a break of structure on either the 15-minute time frame, maybe the 30-minute, maybe the hourly, right? Whatever time frame you're looking at the chart on, right? It could really happen on all, but to me, at least the 15-minute structure is going to be valid, because 15-minute accumulation, 15-minute is going to kind of be that golden ticket entry area where if you're looking at like a daily or weekly area, being able to position yourself on the 15-minute time frame in a weekly area, in a monthly area, is going to give you the best risk to reward. So this is why, to me, the 15-minute is typically going to be the first time frame I look at. I don't necessarily pay attention to 5-minute, 3-minute unless I'm looking at smaller time frame distro. So this, or accumulation. So in instances for that, I'll kind of teach you the scenarios where you would kind of look for that to occur versus where you would look for it to happen on the higher time frames, because typically what you'll see sometimes is 3-minute, 1-minute accumulation out of a random area and then it just flies and you're like, damn, why the fuck did it do that? Like on the 15-minute, it never broke. On the 30-minute, right? On what you typically look for, if you follow the institutional concepts that obviously have been taught to most people that follow me, right? And even if you're not too hip, I'm going to kind of go through those fundamental institutional concepts this week as well. But Wyckoff, to me, like I said, is good. Wyckoff was one of the things I neglected the longest, but it was truthfully one of the things that helped my trading progress in terms of increasing the risk to reward. Okay? So what we have to pay attention to, like I said, initially when we get that selling climax, we're going to get a break of structure on a 15-minute time frame. When we get that break of structure, that's typically where you guys are getting into early. Because if you play breaks of structure, you might see a 15-minute break of structure here. And then what you do is you look to enter in here. So if we were to sit here and kind of draw this out, right? So let's say, boom, price is just chilling, right? That boom, we drop down, drop down, drop down. Okay. Now, what we might see typically is something like this. Okay, so now when this occurs, right? So most people would sit here and be like, okay, we broke above this previous lower high. Right? So this is our lower high that we Oh, I was like, what the fuck? Is there an O beside it? But basically, right, most people would sit here and be like, okay, right, we were bearish, whoop, whoop, like, so you could look at it from the perspective, like I said, of us being super bearish, fell off the cliff, then boom, we get this little break of structure. What most people will do that follow like the institutional concepts, or just like if you're playing structure, right, what you're going to sit here and you're going to do is you're going to look for a re-entry in here, right? You're going to look for a play typically in that last down push before that break of structure, right? So this last down drive before we then popped up, right? Or even in here. So that's where most people kind of get in a little bit early. And this is where you have to understand, where are you entering in the schematic of what you're looking at? And this is why I say, like, you're never going to miss a trade. So you might sit there and you have an area marked up and you might be expecting it to hit your area and go. No, that's not how typically it's going to work. It could happen sometimes, but typically it's going to be during news events and it's going to be a quick little impulsive wick. But that still in itself is going to be part of the accumulation and distribution process. It's just typically going to be a later phase. It's going to be phase C or phase D, where you just really get that continuation. Okay, so just taking a look at this, right? Most people, like I said, when that little break of structure occurs in here, people get baited into buying in this area. But then what ends up happening? Okay, well, this ends up happening. Okay. So drop a 1 in the chat if this ever happened to you. So you were in a trade, you saw this break of structure happen, then you tried to play this area and then it just dumped below your area. I would say probably most people that know what structure is or play structure, right? Most of you probably had that happen. Then what do you end up doing after? You get your stop loss hit here, right? So you sit here and you play this area, right? Stop loss, 20 points. Right, you're looking for, let's say, a 1 to 12. So you're sitting here and you're looking for this area. Your stop loss is below the low, 36 pips, whatever have you, 20 pips. Your stop loss gets hit. Then what ends up happening? Well, price. This probably ends up happening. Then what do you do then? Then you're like, oh my gosh, okay. Well, I was a little bit too early. Oh shit. I was a little bit too early in here. I had my stop loss hit. So now, let me go ahead and enter in here. And let me put my stop loss right below the low. Because of course, that's going to be the safest thing to do. Okay? But, if we're sitting here and we're identifying just this accumulation, right? What we're going to initially look at this area as is our selling climax. So this is going to kind of be what I said, like the cheat code, that little bread and butter. If you guys know this, you'll be able to kind of piece everything together after. But this is going to be the most important part that you have to pay attention to. So the selling climax. How we know that the selling climax is valid is because typically what you're going to see, like I said, go back test this. Like I said, you might not believe me, go back test, and you guys are going to realize, like, oh shit, this really does happen, right? Because I'm going to show you a couple examples too. Just randomly, like I'm literally going to look at the chart and be like, okay, boom, let's dissect this a little bit, and then you guys are going to see it a little bit more clear, real life examples. But I wanted to kind of do this to be able to show you guys what to expect. And like I said, you guys should be kind of copying this as you guys go to, right, when I mark it up. So the selling climax, typically what you want to see is 15 min break of structure, okay, to make valid, right? You want to see some type of break of structure, whatever time frame you're looking at. So if you're going smaller than the 15 minute, right, all you want to see is ideally after, especially in accumulation, right, when you see that big impulsive drop, once you see that break of structure on the 3 minute, 5 minute, this is typically what you're going to come to expect, right? So the selling climax, we pop up here. Like I said, I don't really pay attention to anything until the secondary test in phase B, which would then be here, okay? So how we know this is a valid secondary test, like I said, what we're going to use to as confluence and confirmation is our secondary test closes lower than our selling climax after breaking structure on 15 min time frame. Okay? So our secondary test is in here, right? So we know it's valid because it's going to close below our selling climax, right? But we also should have had that break of structure on the 15-minute time frame. So that's where that first little head bust comes in. Because I guarantee you guys, once you guys apply this week, you guys will already become so much better at being able to identify accumulation and distribution, right? Because then, like I said, most people are going to take this position here. But then what ends up happening, right, is price here doesn't just stop there. What we're actually going to go ahead and do now is sweep all of this, okay? Sorry, I'm just trying to put it on the other side, but I'm gonna delete the text. But ideally, you guys should like kind of like pay attention to, like I said, just to kind of the like the next thing. These three things, like I said, the selling climax and the secondary test, then this third push down, right, is gonna be what most people, this is where a lot of you guys are looking to try and get your entries in. And if you guys are a part of my team chat, you guys have seen me call out multiple springs, and I'll show you guys examples of like the springs that I called out, right? Because I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, this looks like accumulation right now. I'm looking for one last sweep down. I don't know how low it's gonna go, but once we get that sweep down, we break structure on the 1 minute time frame, I'm in there like somewhere, right? So typically what you're gonna see, like I said, is this spring, right? So this spring is gonna sweep below and it's gonna capture all of the liquidity, right? It's gonna capture all of these lows that we just made, right? And it's gonna drive lower. So then what's gonna happen after this spring? Typically you're gonna see something crazy like this. And this is where most people go wrong, because most people are like, damn, I missed it, oh my god, and they try and get in late, right? Because they're like, this is the spring, but they're so dumb, right? They don't understand that the spring is gonna come back and it's gonna test twice, right? Typically it'll test like 10 times, but it's just like, it depends what time frame you're looking at. But once you know what area is the spring and where it's gonna come back to, because this literally gives you the cheat code on where it's gonna come back to. Because if we sit here now, we go to phase D, right? All of this other shit doesn't matter in between. Like I said, once we close below the secondary test, once we close below that, that is the spring, right? Where our test is gonna come back to, notice where these support lines are. You see how the secondary test in phase B, right? that is going to be our re-entry point. That is going to be your fucking bread and fucking butter. That's literally going to be the epitome of your best entries ever. When I'm talking like, this is how I caught 1 to 50s, 1 to 60s in like a day. Risk 4 pips to catch 300-400. Like, what's the risk to reward on that? It's stupid, right? So this is where your entry lies, right? And this now, right, is where you position yourself with the confidence. And this is like, it's not to say that you know price is going to go up, but when you know you have the spring, for a fact, price is not going to push lower than this spring. For a fact. Like, it's just like, go do your homework on that. Like I said, we're going to do our research, right? But this is typically what's going to occur, right? So, price is going to come back all the way down here. It's going to literally come back to the secondary test perfectly. Literally damn near perfect. It might wick a little bit below it. And when I say a little bit, it might be like 10 pips, maybe at most. 15 pips at most. But for the most part, it'll literally tap it. Sometimes it literally like won't even tap it. It'll fill an imbalance and then go. So this is where your understanding of knowing imbalances is going to come crucial. So this area right here is going to be referred to as our test. In our test area, if we sit here and we go do our homework now, so if we do our homework now on this, right? Shit. Oh, I was like, where did I put the test? Like, I know I just typed that shit up. Right, so this test area, what is going to occur typically, you're going to see something like this. We're going to come right into this area, maybe like I said, a little bit lower. We might close above, we might not. The in-between, like I said, doesn't really matter, but 90% of the time, sometimes we don't necessarily come back right away for this one. But 90% of the time, we're going to tap it. Like, at least once. It might be a weird wick. It might come down. And you might be like, why the fuck did we react out of here? But we're going to come back then to the selling climax. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to tap the selling climax. Then we're going to go. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and download this image. And I'm going to go ahead and drop it in the chats. For those of you that didn't take a picture. For those of you that didn't listen to me when I said kind of mark it up. Right? This is going to be for you to not completely lose it. Right? But now what we're going to go ahead and do. Right? I have, right, some pictures. Right? So essentially, right, and I'm going to teach you. This is how sometimes, like, on gold, this is how the higher time frames, this is really where you're going to be able to come catch the re-entries. Right? So there's accumulation, but then there's also reaccumulation. Shit. Okay? There's reaccumulation. Okay? So there's this initial accumulation, then there's reaccumulation. And the reaccumulation is going to basically be kind of the same, but it's going to be, if you were to compare it to the schematic, it's going to be a schematic 2 versus a schematic 1, right? So schematic 1 is typically going to be the bottom, but then it's going to reaccumulate on top of that to then continue. And that's going to be like phase D. Okay, phase D of accumulation. So, like I said, write this down, family. The reason why you guys are losing most of the time is because you are entering in phase A and phase B. If I guaranteed you, if you only entered in phase C and phase D, you guys would literally increase your profitability instantly, right? And that's just like, it's a fact. Like, I haven't seen anyone that actually has applied this that hasn't been able to kind of implement and see just a particular result, right? So let's come to here. Nothing on it. Okay, so we'll stay on the 15-minute time frame just because this is really what we were working with. So this, like I said, is an example of it. But in terms of examples, I do believe there is a few cleaner examples that we could really look at from the course of the last little bit. Like, there's like, when I'm talking about bottom, family, like, I don't mean like, let me give you the perspective, right? I called out buys here on stream. So we'll actually go here on the 15-minute time frame. This is like the epitome of like, oh shit. I keep forgetting to log in. That's the one thing I gotta do. I gotta log into my new trading view. I updated my Windows. I got logged out of all my shit. But all right, let's go sit here and even just take a look at this. This right here even looks like some that we could deal with. So what date is this? February 23rd. Okay. So let's go to the 15-minute on February 23rd. Like I said, if you want to get better at backtesting, this is what you guys have to do. Go back in the replay mode. If you guys have the replay mode, right, accessible to you, I would sit there and I would go back into the replay mode, and I could only go back to May. So what I would do is sit there and just kind of pick random areas in terms of where price kind of like developed. And I would sit there and I would just ideally be looking for particular areas and just be guessing. Like I would sit there and apply what it is that we're learning, and then sit there and just guess, like, okay, based off of what I'm seeing right now, like what actually is occurring that, you know, just really happened here in terms of what we were looking at on the accumulation distribution side. It looks like in the most recent time, the area that we just, like, what we just did was probably the cleanest. Because like I said, I need to go log in, but I need to reset my password because there's a couple people that have access to that account. So I just have to reset. But okay, let's sit here and now take a look at this, right? So looking at this price action develop, right? Just looking at it from the 15-minute time frame, okay? So 15-minute wise, this is not the cleanest time frame to be able to sit here and kind of identify and look at this accumulation, right? But if we sit here now, dig to 5-minute, 15-minute, right? It's a little bit something more that we can manage and is almost like tolerable, right? In terms of just real life being able to see just price develop, like I said, okay? So in terms of this, right? Like I said, what we typically like to see in terms of just that first initial confirmation that, all right, price has been selling off, right, since like 2000, right? We've been bearish. So like I said in the example before, we've been selling off, right? Now on the 5-minute time frame, what ends up happening? Up in this area, right? Well, to me, right, I wouldn't really consider the break of structure. To me, I would look at this. Once we close here, right, I would have looked at that as that break of structure that we look for in that phase A, right? So what I would have looked to do is identify this as our what? Selling climax, okay? So on the 5-minute now, we sit here. This is our selling climax. This low point right here, okay? So that's our selling climax. What now we look for in terms of phase B, like I said, is this low to get taken. Okay, because most people would have sat here, like I said, 5-minute break of structure. They would have bought it here, probably bought it here again, and it would have got a little pop. Like, because think about it. When you're losing trades and you're getting in too early, this is what happens. You go into a little bit of profit. That psychs you into thinking that you're right. Then stop loss it. Then you re-enter, go into a little bit of profit, stop loss it, right? So it happens over and over again. So how we are able to identify where the secondary test is going to be is just the lowest point, right? So ideally, you can see here, we closed below it here, right? But notice how we popped up, we kind of consolidated, and we kept going lower. So you don't actually want to sit here and mark it as a valid secondary test until you see ideally like a 1-minute, 3-minute break of structure towards the upside, which in this case, right, on the 5-minute time frame, we broke to the upside here. Okay? So if this is our secondary test, right, ideally, like I said, when it comes down to the spring, it's like a lot of people would have probably got shook out, right, because of the big wick, but it's news. But if we sit here and we just play fundamentals and we sit here and we just look at what occurred, right, once we close below this secondary test, right, this spring, notice how we get 3 consecutive buy candles, right? Even out of this area, 3 consecutive buy candles. If you guys have followed me for a little bit, I talk about confirming just the institutions as having that buy volume in the market, right? You can see that, boom, these are 3 fairly big candles, right? We came down and then, boom, we made our way back up quickly. So what we sit here and mark this now as is our spring, right? So with this being our spring, what are we now going to sit here and look for a re-entry at? Like what area, right? Because ideally the spring happens, right? And it comes back right away, right? It comes back right there. So you're typically going to get an opportunity to re-enter right away. But if we sit here and we extend this line, okay, it's not just going to test it once. Like I said, it's going to test it like 10 times. So it comes, boom, hits a line once, twice, 3 times, basically 4 times, right? Then what ends up happening with the news? Like, do you guys see how right here, boom, we tap it, we react. We tap it, we react. And then that final push down, right? The only reason why we push down, like I said, this was news. But if we sit here and like I said, if you pay attention to what I really talk about all the time, with the wicks not mattering, if we now sit here and we eliminate that big ass wick, is this even really, like, are we even really debating whether or not that this was our spring and this is our test? No, you're not even having a fucking second guess. You are literally not even hesitating. You are not second doubting yourself. This shit is clear as fucking day. If we sit here and look at this, does this not look similar, right? Selling climax, what ends up happening? Break of structure, what happens? Selling climax, right? We get that break of structure right here. What happens? Close below, right? Secondary test, close below. What do we get? Some bullishness. We start moving upwards again, right? What happens after the secondary test? We start moving upwards again. Then push down, right? Notice how we don't close below the body of this spring. So the fact that we don't close below the body, that's how you know this was just really a liquidity grab. And this was just, like I said, this is just news. This is gold being gold. This is news doing news stuff. Okay? But if you sat here and you really were just playing the candle closes instead of paying attention to the wick, you would literally sit here and it'll blow your fucking mind. Right? Because, for example, right, I feel like Nas has better accumulation examples as of late. Gold is more distro. Like, I feel like I'm gonna have to break this up into 2 calls, 1 accumulation, 1 distribution. So today we'll stick just accumulation, because fuck, I haven't even really touched on just half the shit yet, really, at all, right? But when it comes down to this, right, let's take a look at just this. When is this? July 20th. Okay. Okay, perfect. So, boom. Let's look right here. So, same thing. Okay? So, just being able to identify this, like I said, typically we're going to be falling off first, because what's going to happen before we start to accumulate? Well, shit, it's the end of distribution. The market goes in 1 of 2 phases, accumulation and distribution. Okay? So, as we're sitting here and we identify, okay, we're bearish, we're falling off, whatever the case may be, right? What is the first sign that we're looking for of just, all right, we're going to be able to start even looking at this? Well, we're going to be looking for a break of structure on the 15-minute time frame. So in terms of this lower high, lower low, lower high, right? Lower low, lower high, lower low, right? We're maintaining this bearish structure. Okay? So where we actually get that break, like I said, is when we close above here. Shit. Did we actually close above that? It doesn't actually look like we close above that on the 15-minute, but on the 5-minute, if we were to dig down, that's one of those ones where if it doesn't break on the 15-minute, but as long as it could break, like 5-minute, to me, it would have been a break in here, right? But because it was so close, right, on the 15-minute, it's like, it just depends on where you're like what lower high you would have been playing. To me, I like to play higher areas, like just basically the last area that we like just have to fill. But what you really have to notice too is the wicks. The reason why this would have been just valid in my eyes is because the wicks just came into an IPA, an imbalance that we had resting right above. Okay? So now initially looking at this, right? Once we have this bullish momentum, like I said, when we look for that accumulation, what we want to see is that automatic rally. We want to see some buying, right? So what we could look at this as our selling climax. Okay, so once we get this selling climax and we pop back up, right, we get this that comes and closes a little bit below or maybe a little bit above, right? We get that little pop back up, right? So notice what ends up happening, right? In the secondary test, we're going to get a little bit of a pop back up, right? So we end up sideways, 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 right? After this point, and then we break down again, right? So when we break down again here, to me, this wouldn't be the secondary test. This would be, right? And the reason for that is just simply due to the fact that on the smaller time frame structure, right, we more than, like, to me, on the 15-minute, all we were doing was filling imbalance in here. So this is how fractal the market is. Like, we're literally sitting here attempting to buy the market up. The market is overall going to go higher. But because, like I said, this is bad for the algorithm, the market literally has to offer sells in this area. So this is why we push up to certain areas, right? So this is why, boom, you might see that little bit of a pop after. So this is why I say the in-between, it's once you can identify just really where the selling climax and the secondary test is in phase B, that's when you're then going to be able to keep it pushing. Because to me, this looks like even in itself, accumulation. If I were to dig this down into the 1 minute, I guarantee you this accumulation on the 1 minute, right? So, mind you, we're looking at 15-minute accumulation, but then there's 1 minute accumulation within the accumulation. So this is why I say, once you're able to break it down, it's lit, right? So, as, boom, we come down, what ends up happening? Like I said, it's the same thing, right? What do we have in here that we come back and we correct and fill? We have an imbalance. What are we doing by coming back up to this drive up that actually pushed us lower? We're mitigating, right? So, the banks, when they buy the market up to then drive it down, they have to then buy the market back up into this area. So they're buying it back up into this area. Okay? So now when we sit here and we look at this, right, I'd imagine this is the lowest point. But if we notice the volume, right, notice the volume. Okay? So the one thing about confirmations with the volume, when you sit here and you see, okay, the red candles are obviously selling, the blue candles are buying, right? What's the one thing that you guys can sit here and notice about just the volume? Just taking a look at this, right? So in this particular area, right, just taking a look at it, would you say that there's more sells, the sells are stronger or the buys are stronger? Just taking a look at it. Drop in the chat. What do you guys think? You guys think it's going up or down? I hate this delay. It's like 20 seconds, 15 seconds. At least. And then some people join late, so they might even be behind, the lag, the pause. Right, but if you have eyes, okay, I'm just assuming you guys are eyes. Okay, cells. All right, perfect. I see going down. Cells, right? So the cells. So that is one thing that's key too, right? The sells are greater than the buys. If we really look at this, the sell volume is way greater than the buys. But what does that mean when we're looking at accumulation? That means that we have volume divergence. So that basically means even though there's more sell volume in the market right now, we're getting ready to buy. So what we're doing is we're literally baiting sellers. We're enticing sellers into the market. So this is why we keep selling the market off. Like notice, right? Everyone that bought, like I said, they would have tried to buy here. If they didn't take profit, stop loss hit. Then what happens? They buy again here. What happens? If they don't take profit, stop loss hit. What happens? They buy it again here. It goes up. If they don't take profit, what happens? Stop loss hit. By the time people get their stop loss hit 3-4 times, most people don't use risk management, right? So their account might be gone after 3-4 trades. If you do use risk management, it's like 3-4 trades, losses in a row in the span of 20 minutes is going to piss anyone off. It's going to fucking make you rage. You're going to be like, oh my gosh. Because then you're going to watch it fly right after. That's going to be the most salty point, right? But sitting here and now identifying that close below, right? So now if we're anticipating, okay, this is our spring. What I would initially be sitting here and looking at is, okay, I would want to see ideally if this is really going to be our spring, because if we come in close below this point, then I'm going to explain to you why this wouldn't have been our spring. But I'm just trying to guess with you guys right now, because like I said, I don't have the replay mode accessible. So in terms of this, boom, right? Ideally, I would want to see at least some type of close above this before validating this as that spring, right? So you do want to see just some type of upward movement, right, prior. Because like I said, when it comes down to where we're going to re-enter, our re-entry point right, our re-entry point is going to be here. And immediately you can see it test it. So like I said, it's going to test it like fucking 30, 40, 50 times, right? But now, this is what I was telling. This is like, you can't make this fucking shit up. You literally can't make this shit up. I'm telling you. Go do your fucking homework on the test, coming back to the secondary test, fucking 20 times. Like, is this not insane to you? Like, drop a 1 in the chat if this is not like actually just making it make sense in a way where you're like, damn, that's easy. Like, how is this not easy if you're sitting here and you're kind of applying all of those tools? Because like I said, it's going to give you the re-entries right away. 1 re-entry, 2 re-entry, 10 re-entries. But then, boop, right here. Like, do you think it's a coincidence that it just comes to this point? Because look at this. Like I said, this is how you get that stupid risk to reward. Because if you sit here and you're playing off of the test, stop loss below the spring because you know that it should not come below there, at the very least, what you want to see is this entire structure get taken. So whatever the accumulation was, the highest point, that's at the very minimum that you want to see it. So that is a 1 to 5. But ideally, you're going to be looking to target whatever, to me, relative high we have. So I would look to have target, probably this is my first overall higher time frame target, right? So this right here. So now if we sit here and look at the risk reward, that works out to about a 1 to 11, right? A 1 to 11, but you get 1 opportunity, 2 opportunities, right? And if you just took this first entry, you could have took profit, 70% of your position. Price comes back, gives you a re-entry. Even if you were scared and you hesitated here, price breaks structure here on the 15-minute time frame, comes back to this last down candle before we did break structure to the upside. This is your re-entry. Right? But check this out now, right? So this area is going to fuck you guys up, right? Because we saw how accurate the secondary test was, right? I bet my fucking money that this shit hits the selling climax. Boom. So our selling climax was, boom, right here. So it's a little off. But if we sit here and we look at just both of these areas, we do come and we basically tap both of these. Like, we literally are wicking off of them. Like, we don't stay there and we chill. Like, do you notice how we don't chill? We wick and then, boom, gone. Then we break down quickly, tap it, gone. Wick, tap it. Wick, tap it. Like, it doesn't give you a lot of opportunities to sit there and get the bottom if you're slow on your, like, if you're slow and you're like, damn, I think this might go lower, and you hesitate for 5 minutes. 5 minutes is the difference between you entering here and being broke even here, right? Versus price coming back, and you probably would have got hit out if you broke even regardless. That's why I don't break even until my first target, really, typically on gold, or unless we make a new higher high or lower low. Then typically that's when I'm break even. But this is literally just one example, right? And this was like a couple days ago. And this is us, like I said, this is a live breakdown. Like, we called out a couple NAS trades, but It's like this isn't really something that I went over, right, or back tested myself. Like I said, you're gonna find a lot of examples every single day, no matter where you're going, right? So this is why when I talk about just being able to identify the selling climax, you want to look for a break of structure on the 5-minute, 15-minute time frame. Then when that secondary test comes below, like I said, it's gonna break. It's gonna break below the selling climax. Most of you are losing right here. You enter literally right here in the secondary test, because you do get a little bit of a pop, but then you always get hit out, right? And the reason why you always get hit out, like I said, phase B, phase A. Go do your homework on the likelihood of you getting hit out break even on phase C and phase D. Like from you just not breaking even too early. Like the only reason why you'll get break even in these areas is if you break even too early, right? Or if you just get in too late and you're just playing a shitty area, right? That'll be the reason. But it's so very fractal. This is why I'm saying it's just like, you know, you would have been able to sit here and you would have been able to catch this little position, right? And you would have been at the very least able to catch, you know, like a 1 to 10, right? And that's being like very, 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 very generous with the stop loss. Like this is being like, this is you wanting to take this trade and literally not having to pay attention at all. Because to me, I would have set my stop loss literally right below the fucking body of this bitch. Probably even lower. Like once I saw this first test, no cap, I normally take the area that I'm looking at for the test. And once it gets that first reaction, like I might have the stop at the low, but I'm immediately then moving it 10 pips below. Whatever wick I'm playing, I'll put it 10 pips below that wick. So now you notice how this could potentially go from, you know, a light 1 to 10, which most of you guys are catching 1 to 2s and 1 to 3s. So a 1 to 10 is not even light. But I'm going to teach you how by the end of this week, a 1 to 10 could be a lot easier, right? But this at the very least could be a 1 to 22. Okay? And I really want you guys to understand that this is something that really, like I said, occurs very often because, boom, I'll give you guys a prime example, right? It's like, I was sitting here and I was anticipating just whether or not this one area in particular was a spring. Okay, so this is July 24th. So we can literally probably go back and actually look at this. So boom. So sit here, notice. Selling climax, right? We get that break of structure above this area. Secondary test. Right, the reason why it's this low instead of this low is because obviously we fucking close below this shit right after, right? So to me, once we get that little break of structure, like we talked about, these confluences, right? Secondary test, boom. Then we're looking at this as the spring. So this was at 1958. This is July 24th, okay? And this is on XAU USD. So if we go back to XAU USD and we go to the 15-minute time frame on July 24th. Okay, so when we sat here and we were really paying attention to just what was happening, right? So during this London session, this was, yeah, the 24th. It was literally the 25th. About to be 25th. So price was at 1958.64, right? So price was at 19. It was give or take around here. Okay, and we identified this is our selling climax. This was our secondary test. Selling climax. Secondary test. Oh, SR. Been playing too much Call of Duty. SR. Secondary test. Then we're looking at this as the spring. Okay. So to me, like I said, it's just very important to sit here and identify just in terms of 15-minute, but where you're going to be able to sometimes when it's a little tricky, because I believe we were looking at the 5-minute. We were playing the 5-minute time frame in there because the 5-minute was so disgustingly clean. So boom, we sit here, right? Like I said, it's a little bit cleaner on the 5-minute. But when we sit here and we identify this spring, right, and we get this this first initial pop up, right? So on the 5 minute, this is what I was looking at the secondary test as, this little close right below here, this lowest point. Because like I said, you're gonna have different areas. If you're looking at on the 15-minute time frame and on the 5 minute time frame, they're gonna be at different places, right? So when we sit here and boom, secondary test. We sit here and we extend this, right? Where do we end up coming back to? Right? We come back to this. This was news, right? So like I said, if we sit here and we eliminate the wicks, which are a distraction, right? In this case, what we got in here was another just reaccumulation. Like the only reason why we came back was because of the news and the manipulation, right? But if you were to sit here and if you were to have played the 1 minute time frame, because that's basically what I played in here, right? I played the 1 minute time frame. I entered on this wick right here. And this is the importance of how, like I said, you don't have to catch the big move to catch the big R&R, right? So I sat here and I swear I risked 5 to 6 pips, and that's including my spread. My spread was like 3 pips, right? And understand, just to this first initial area where we just reacted out of, right? Where I don't know how much higher we went. We went, before we came back down, this is the highest point we went. But it's a 1 to 15. I took partials out of 1 to 10. 80% of my position. I woke up, I got hit break even. I didn't even care. Why? Because like I said, I caught a 1 to 10 in like 20 minutes. Right? But if we sit here and now, like I said, overall, we're looking at the 15 minute. But if now, okay, cool. The 15 minute time frame. Now, if we sit here and we dig this down to a 5 minute perspective, right? You could also really look at this whole kind of 5 minute structure, right? You could look at this. Same way, right? You could look at this as that selling climax. Or the selling climax would have still been in the cut up here, right? But the only thing that really would have changed would have been just like the spring, right? But on the 1 minute, accumulation too, even in here, this is where, to me, if you were just understood accumulation, you would have been able to at least catch this little re-entry. Like I said, the news, fuck, you would have been shit out of luck. And that's the one thing that you can't really avoid, right? You can't avoid the manipulation with news. But imagine if you sit here and you're risking 5 to 10 pips in an area where you're looking at a minimum of 1 to 20. It's like you're going to be okay with sometimes you get wicked out. Because this is just, it's been a volatile couple of weeks, right? There's been a lot of news. But it's not always this fucking, like it's volatile. Obviously it's gold. But it's not always going to be this manipulated. Like this, that was just some fuckery. Like that was actually like absurd. Even this week too. This was just like an extra fuck you just to make sure that everyone was hit out. Like I said, structure wise, when we sit here and we just look at the closes, the candle closes, yeah, it's a big wick. But if we sit here and we ignore the wick is a distraction. This is clean accumulation, right? This test, like you guys were saying, it made a lot of sense, right? So in terms of everything so far, drop in the chat. Like, what do you guys, like, have you guys learned anything? Have you guys been able to take any away? Is this making sense? Is anything not making sense? Like, are you guys learning something, right? Are you guys taking something away? What type of feedback do we got so far? I feel like we went through 2 pretty cool examples that, like I said, it just makes sense. Like I said, it's all about not overcomplicating it. I feel like I try and simplify everything. I really, when I sit here and when you guys come into the live trading, I feel like you don't really understand that when I look at the markets, I'm looking at all of these things. Like I can see, I don't have to mark it up the same way that you guys have to. It's like, I might just put a line in certain, like I might put a line where the secondary test is. In a box where there's an IPA and certain things. But for the most part, like I said, my charts are naked. If you come to my house on a regular day and I'm not teaching and I'm not running a call, my charts are never really marked up, right? So this is something that genuinely I feel like if you guys didn't learn anything that stuck with you, like I said, watch it again, because if it was an abundance of information, this is why it's good to kind of learn in 10, 20-minute increments. So this is why I broke it down, what it should look like on the side. We looked at what it looks like on the chart. I showed you guys what you should pay attention to. Then I gave you real examples. Like I said, real examples of real areas, real trades that were called out. And it's just something that, like I said, like this shit is simple, right? So in terms of that, I am going to go eat. So I will be running a call tomorrow. We'll we'll tap into the distributions more. But ideally, we're going to be live trading Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So make sure that you guys are active and ready for that. I want to start getting the live trading up to 30, 40 people, but it's going to be up to you guys, right? There's a lot of people that you guys hop on these calls, and it's like you don't want anyone else to hop on, but it's like somebody else could take something away from the call. And if you're the reason why they were on the call, they're going to look at you and they're going to be like, damn, thank you. So it's just the gratitude, right, aspect that comes around. But in terms of that, family, I love and appreciate you guys. Please drop a like if you guys are on stream. Let me see at least 10 likes on this, right? In terms of that, family, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to see you guys tomorrow. Peace.